perpetrators was at a court, and all the police would say, they'd come round dutifully and take statements, and all they would ever say is they're just kids trying to get money for drugs. And the wreckage that ensued. And I realise how much less fearful I am now, not living in a place where this happens all the time, but most of us in this country live in cities and are constantly, it's a little bit in the back of your mind. Of course there'll be crime, without illegal drugs, but everything that we're hearing here suggests it would be a great deal less. A couple of things that haven't been mentioned today, some sort of purely personal issues, but the freedom issue is not something we can pin down in reports like this. But honestly, if I go and grow some nice dope at home and smoke it myself, and my children won't have any because they say, oh, then I'll end up all druggy like you. I am not harming myself. Well, if I am harming myself, it's my problem. It's not very serious, and I don't think it's going to cost the NHS so much, and I'm certainly not harming anybody else. But that's, as I said, it's a pure opinion issue, and one of the things I really like about this report and what's happening here today, and why I'm going to go out and publicise it as much as I can, is because it's not about those kind of opinion issues, it's about facts, gathering information and facts about it. In a way, this is even more depressing because we know our government will sack somebody for saying, let's base our policy on science. But I have to remain, as a lifelong scientist, I have to remain optimistic that in the end scientific truths will prevail over idiocy and bigotry and ignorance. Another point that hasn't been mentioned by anyone else is the pure class and racial unfairness of prohibition. Because I honestly think that for me as a 60-year-old white, well-to-do, educated mother living in a small village in Devon, if I grow cannabis in my garden, my chances of being busted are quite small. If I were young and poor and black and living in Bristol, for example, or any city, my chances of not being busted would be very small. And that really makes me angry. I mean, lucky me, but it makes me angry. So there are many, many things here to add apart from this. So, can we be optimistic at all that anything's going to change? Because we've had how long? 40 years of the Misuse of Drugs Act. We've had every kind of human kind of stupidity, ignorance and refusal to accept the facts. Here we're presented with the most fantastic schemes that could really work, and we know that, well, we fear that nobody's going to listen. Will it change? Well, I think there were two things that politicians will want. One is money, and the other is votes. Here we have promises of the magic money. What did you call it? The
gold. Pot of gold.
The pot of gold, the magic pot of gold out of nowhere, yes. Will they listen? Well, I don't think they'll listen until they've got the other thing, which is the votes. And here, my optimism comes from my thought that there will be a tipping point. I think it's that kind of a phenomenon. It's not one of those slow, it's one of those things. If any politician standing for election thinks that by and large the people voting for him are of the just say no type, and the, ooh, drugs are dangerous, so we must prohibit them, then he or she will go that line. What it requires is there enough of us ordinary people who are going to vote to make our politicians think, I might get more votes. And even, can you imagine this? Can you imagine, let's say next year, let's say, or whenever the next election is, in a few years' time, the politicians, the candidates clamouring to be the one loudest saying, I'm going to be the one at last to sort out the cannabis problem, we'll get more money, and you can have bigger pensions, and they'll be clamouring to, can you think that's going to happen? Well, I see some shaking heads, but it'll happen one day. It's got to happen one day. This horrendous burden, this great weight that we're all carrying around, it just becomes heavier and heavier. At some point we're going to have to throw it off. But maybe it'll be sooner than later. So all I can say is I urge all of you, just get the word out, keep talking. There's nothing very dramatic we can do, but if every friend we tell other people, and we can actually change the number of people who will vote for someone who will get this done, that's the best I can think of. That's how I managed to go to sleep at night, not too depressed and a little bit hopeful. Thank you all.
And to Jim Duffy.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Jim Duffy speaking on behalf of LEAP, an organisation that probably quite a few people out there have never heard of. Who are we? Very briefly, LEAP stands for Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. We're made up of officers, police officers, drug enforcement officers, district attorneys, senators, serving officers throughout the United States of America and starting to get a grip here in the UK as well, who understand that we've been fighting a drugs war for 40 years since 1970. We fought it in America, we fought it in the UK, and that war is lost. That war is completely lost and completely unwinnable. How unwinnable is it? Well, since 1970, the United States of America has locked up many of its citizens for non-violent drug offences, and between 1971 and 2007, it put 39 million people in jail. 39, the biggest growth industry in the United States of America at the moment, is building prisons. What we did when we prohibited drugs was we effectively surrendered it. We surrendered the control of the drug market to the bad guys who run it. They are the people who decide what drugs are going to sell, who they're going to sell it to, what the purity, the strength, what they're going to cut it with. They are the people who decide if they're going to sell it to 10-year-olds or your kids or your grandkids, or if they're going to give it away to get people hooked. And what we've done for 40 years of prohibition is to turn our backs on that and just say to people, no. And that hasn't worked. Now, Albert Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And we have done that. I was a police officer for 32 years. I never remember a time when we didn't have zero tolerance. I never remember a time when we didn't ask for more powers and get them. I never remember a time when we made the slightest bit of difference. When I joined the police in 1975, we talked about a tenner bag. When I left in 2007, we were still talking about a tenner bag. Had inflation kept pace, it would have been £147. It wasn't. There are only two questions in the drugs war. Are they getting harder to get and are they getting more expensive? Everyone in this room, every drugs worker, every social worker, every police officer will tell you drugs have never been more plentiful and they have never been cheaper. So if you want it to continue in that vein, sit on your seats and do nothing. But if you are like me and like the people on the panel here feel that we need to take control of this situation back, then we have to do something different. And that different thing is what's talked about here. Take control of it. Legalise it, regulate it, and tax it. Make it work for us. Take it away from the criminals. The minute you take it away from the criminals, people say to me, well, if you stop them getting money from that, they'd only go and do something else. Great. I'm all in favour of having to work for the money, because they're not having to work for it just now. There's about a £7 billion market, black market in drugs in this country, and we're doing nothing about it except say no. So if you're quite happy to continue with that, then sit down. But if you're not, we need to look at the alternatives. This report here, as other speakers have said, I'm very impressed with the content, and I think it will be very hard for the government to rubbish it because it's their figures that help to produce the report that's there. And it's obvious as the nose in your face, but what we're doing isn't working, and this is an alternative. Yes, let's take it forward, let's legalise it, let's control it. People have said, okay, we legalise and control alcohol and tobacco and gambling. People die from all those things. But at the moment we have a drugs market where we have no control at all. Not a bit. There is a government report hidden away in the depths of Downing Street which said about 4 or 5 years ago, in order to make a difference in the drugs market, you would need to stop 80% of the stuff that comes into the country. Best estimates in that report were that we currently stop 5% of it. That report was never publicised. It was buried away. It took 6 Freedom of Information requests to get it out. What we're doing is not working. How can people not understand that? How can people not grasp the nettle and say we need to do something different? Here's something different for us. Here's something that works. It's already done in California, in the United States of America, where people can get personal licenses and grow their own, pay tax on it. In Portugal, they've decriminalised the possession of stuff for personal use, and rightly enough, as we said, we've got the horror stories. Portugal will become the drugs tourist capital of Europe, and it didn't. They legalised, well, they didn't legalise, but they started to give heroin addicts heroin in Switzerland 8 years ago. There hasn't been a drugs overdose death from heroin in Switzerland in that 8 years, because it's controlled, it's regulated, people know what they're buying, and if you'll pardon the wee phrase, it does exactly what it says on the tin. So you know what you're getting and what the effect will be. And if people make the choice that they want to take cannabis or anything else at all, then as long as they've been informed and they know what it's about, let them go and do it. 30 years in the police, and I had far more trouble with people who took drink than I ever had with people who took drugs. Arresting people who took drugs was a joy because they came along quite happily. The drunks just wanted to fight with me, and I never really enjoyed that very much. But we need to change it, folks. This is a great first step. Leap viewing things is slightly different than that we would regulate and legalise everything, but we have to start somewhere. This is a great place to start, and if you want to be part of that, then let's go and talk about it to people. Let's get them convinced of the strength of our argument, because once you do that, it doesn't take long to get people on your side. And from the ground level up, once politicians hear it from the bottom up, and they realise, as Raymond said, there's votes in it, and there's money in it, then things will change. But you need to help that change take place. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much to all my colleagues on the panel. Any questions?
Yes, sir, I came in a little bit late. At a point been brought up that, in fact, prohibition is a stepping stone for people that just want cannabis. Due to prohibition, you go to your drug dealer, and you're often not just offered pot, but there might be ecstasy or cocaine or whatever, yeah? So there are 2 or 3 million people that are potentially being offered other drugs, whereas if they go to a coffee shop or can grow for themselves, the other drugs are taken out of the loop. I mean, I think it's a very serious point.
Jim might want to say something about that.
I also often get asked when I talk about this around the country about, you know, if people start with cannabis, if you decriminalise it and regulate it, then they'll try it and we'll go on to bigger and better things. Do you take a drink?
I used to be an alcoholic, but I'm 10 years clean.
Good for you. I enjoy a drink, I enjoy a beer. I also buy my particular poison from 2 guys in Scotland called White and Mackay. Glass of that size.
Yeah.
But there's a vodka from Russia which is 138% proof, and it'll get you high like that. Do I want to drink that? No, I don't. I like to take my time to get to my high. So just because drugs would become regulated and legalised doesn't mean everyone's going to dive into deep end. People like what they like. It's not a gateway drug, it's a choice thing. The thing about regulating and controlling it is that we're not advocating it becomes compulsory. We're not advocating that everyone should try it. We're not advocating that it should be sold to children. It would be the same as alcohol and the same as tobacco, 18 and regulated outlets. Okay, it wouldn't work all the time, but if it works 80% of the time, it's 80% more than it's working just now.
Thank you. Another question, please?
Can I ask a question? Others on the panel. In the report you talk about measuring levels of THC and so on in the drug. Now, there is some evidence that it's the ratio of THC to cannabidiol which is important, and that seems to me very important because trying these different drugs for feel is totally different and so on. But and it looks as though the illegal market has encouraged the production of high THC and low cannabidiol, which is much more harmful. That's got quite complicated though. Are you proposing that we should test the levels as well, or would there be any way of ensuring that we had something with neuroprotectors in it as well as the THC?
I did actually give this some thought when I was writing the report. I thought if we started to get into that, it's going to make it much too complicated
messy,
for people to actually understand. Though the idea of being able to offset the THC content by CBD content might be something that would be worth looking at. I say I'm here to actually put figures on things rather than that. But certainly encouraging use of much higher CBD forms of the drug would be definitely beneficial from a public health point of view.
But shouldn't we tax it less if there's more CBD in it?
Well, that was that.
Tax more if the accelerator's down, tax less if the brake's down, isn't it?
Well,